So, is this the most fun thing in the world or what? I am in occupation close to Wall Street and with some of my most favorite people. Eve Ensler is right behind me. Maybe we'll spill the beans about occupying other blocks of Manhattan. And, of course, Naomi Klein. Let's start with you, Naomi. You've been tweeting about this, talking about coming. You're here. What are you seeing? What have you gotten so far?
Well, I slipped in last night just kind of incognito just to get a feel for it. And it was really beautiful, actually, just coming up to the square. And it was dark. I arrived late last night, and just hearing the voices sort of wafting into the night air. And, you know, I feel really conflicted about it because I really think people should be able to use megaphones. And there's something really wrong about the fact that, you know, we can't amplify our voices. Yet we're bombarded with corporate imagery everywhere we go, and nobody asks our permission about whether we want to hear it. But on the other hand, I just love what people have made with that restriction. So yeah, it was a beautiful scene last night, and obviously lots of anticipation for today. Yeah.
Eve, I guess my reference to us occupying blocks of this city hundreds of years ago is because I'm thinking about how long change takes. You've been involved in making global change and stopping violence against women for all the years I've known you, which is quite a few. Where is this? What is this in your sort of timeline of change in this country and this world?
Well, it's so funny because I was thinking about sleeping in Battery Park, sleeping in Madison Square Park, doing these kind of occupations for years now. But the energy down here feels so alive, and it feels so connected, and the idea that this is all happens spontaneously, that it's horizontal, that it's not coming from the top down, that it's coming from the grassroots, it makes me feel so hopeful that, and that it's a global movement, that it's happening across the globe, and that women are so central to this and in the center of it. I don't trust anything where women aren't in the center. And I also think that in terms of New York, it is a coming together of so many different groups, you know, unions and students and workers and teachers and activists. And this city is such a gathering anyway of the world, and to see all these people merging and understanding that the time has come for economic injustice to end, and that we're going to stop siloing our issues and seeing violence against women over here and destroying the environment over here and poverty over here, but that it's one central story that we're all a part of is, to me, the best thing I can imagine.
Corporate power, that seems to be the focus here. When we say that, when you say that, Naomi, what do you mean?
Well, obviously, we've been talking about corporate power for a long time, and I was part of what the media called the anti-globalization movement in the 90s, which was really an anti-corporate movement or an anti-capitalist movement. And, you know, I was thinking about 12 years after Seattle, what is the difference? And, you know, there are a lot of differences. I think this movement is choosing its target really well. We chose summits, which are transient by nature, so we would pour huge amounts of energy into building something that was going to blow away, right? And then we were surprised by the fact that we didn't leave much behind when September 11th happened and we came under this huge security crackdown. But the other thing is that, you know, 1999, Battle of Seattle, we were in the middle of an economic boom. It was hard to talk about the problems with capitalism. People treated you like you were crazy. And in the media, it was you know, they were drunk. I mean, the mainstream media was drunk on dot-com money, on stock options, and they were having a ball. So, you know, the situation now is so different where the facts of the situation are not in dispute. Everybody understands that we are facing a massive economic crisis and also an ecological crisis, and indeed that they are the same crisis, that their roots are in unfettered greed. That you actually don't need to expend a lot of money, a lot of energy proving. People understand that, but the stakes are also immeasurably higher because there's so many lives on the line. I mean, there always were, but I think especially with climate change, I think we feel the clock ticking, and we need to win this time.
Talk about how the connections play out where you spend so much of your time, Eve, where people's lives are already over that line in Congo.
Well, I just think, you know, as I gave a speech last week in California, and I talked about Essence Road that runs through Bukavu, where there is massive poverty, you know, slave labor, women who have been raped and re-raped, people living at a degree of poverty we can't even imagine. And that road wraps around the world. That is an essence road. That's a global road. Yeah. And that, as Naomi said, it's a road that's been created by a very, very tiny percentage of people at the top who have everything, and the rest, and the rest of the 99% who have nothing or have very little. And I think I think people have reached a point now, like we've come to the max. It's like over. We understand that if we don't rise up now to save the earth, to feed people, to give people health care, to give people just the basic human rights, that there's not much longer. And I think people know it in their bodies, in their beings, in their souls, and they're here saying the time has come. And it's so exciting. It feels like the first break open, and there's been little skirmishes, but I think the wind has come, the second wind has come.
And what Eve was saying about getting out of the silos, what politics, particularly in the United States, but in so many other countries as well, is so NGOized and so issueized. And this movement has come under all this criticism for not having their messaging together, and and basically for not being an NGO. And this country is crawling with groups with their messaging together and poll tested and just absolutely slick, and they're all media trained and they're ready to go. And what are they achieving? Because they aren't rooted in communities. There isn't a sense of ownership at the base for these organizations. There's a consumer relationship between the people who donate money or go to a rally. And so when you're building something from below, it's a lot. It's gritty. It's not slick in that way. But I really believe that's the strength, because we are in the rubble of the attacks on the American left. We stand neck deep in the rubble of McCarthyism, in the rubble of the attacks on the Black Power movement and COINTELPRO, and the attack on trade unions. And so it is a rebuilding process.
Let me get you, Eve, before you have to go. I feel as if we each of us need to sort of come out, and I will, and say, this is where I got my education, in crazy movements. In my case, it was an anti-nuclear occupation, a Greenham Common, crazy-looking, anarchic, leaderless movements that gave me a sense of my own potential and my own ability to affect the world. That's fueled me for decades. You too, I think. So maybe a shout out to people who are saying, what's their relationship to this, and do they dare get close?
Well, I keep listening to people saying, what's the goal? What's the goal? The goal is world change. The goal is global change. And this is the beginning of it. People have been here 2 weeks. But what we have to do is support the energy. Everything's about, when you create a work of art, you don't know where it's going. You begin with the energy of the work, and the energy takes you to what the structure will be and the plan will be. Let's support the energy here. Let's support the intention here. Let's support the desire here. Let's stop making judgments and analysis that are based on fear, rather than saying, look at all these amazing people whose hearts and souls have led them to make a better world. That's where I am, and I'm standing in such deep solidarity with this, and I plan to plant my rear end here until there's change.
Eve Ensler, last comment from you, Naomi. Thanks for coming, Eve.
Bye, Eve. I don't know what to add to that. I mean, I feel like this protest in some ways has been somewhat of a litmus test for liberals. We're finding out who's actually afraid of real change and who's really afraid of massive numbers of people. But in terms of what Eve was saying, the lack of demands, I think you can make there can be a problem of sort of fetishizing a lack of structure. I've seen movements that do that. I've done it myself, and we paid for it. I mean, we paid for it because when times got tough and there was a security crackdown, we didn't have the institutions that would keep us going. We didn't plan for the long term. So we do. I don't have much patience for just making a fetish of formlessness. That said, I do think that it's so key that we create a space to dream, create a space where we find out how powerful we actually are, because that will inform our demands. If we're this small, well, we can't dream very big, but we're growing every day. So as we grow, the radicalism of our demands can change. So I think it would be a real mistake to just say, oh, our goal is to regulate the banks. My dream is bigger than that, So why don't we wait and see what we're capable of?
You're hearing from people all around the world. Who's watching? Who's paying attention? How many of them?
Well, one of the things that's so wonderful is just, it's always fun to watch people outside the United States get really excited when the U.S. joins the party, right? The question in the U.S. media is, what are they protesting? What's this about? Whereas the question all over the rest of the world is, what the hell took you so long? Exactly how much were you going to take before you were going to get your act together? So everybody is watching, because this is the belly of the beast, and what happens on Wall Street affects everybody on this globe. And we're talking about deeply affecting. We're talking millions of people suffering because of the food crisis, the climate crisis, rampant speculations with their currencies. This is not an American issue. This is a global issue, and the world's been waiting.
Naomi Klein, thanks for coming by our non-existent Free Speech TV booth. Thanks for being with us. There's more to come. Stay tuned.